Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, HOA board tries to force me to remove my trampoline. I get them removed from the board instead. I put a trampoline in my backyard in early 2017. I have 3 young boys and we have enjoyed it immensely. My neighbor, the HOA president at the time, went to sell his house in spring of 2018 and his realtor said the trampoline in my backyard might be a detriment to getting top dollar for his home. So he convinced the neighbor on the other side of my house to complain as well. Out of the blue, I received a message from the HOA property manager that the neighbors complained and I would need to submit a form to get it approved. Intermission. What's sad is that I was friendly with both of these people. They had been in my home. They could have talked to me face to face. With one of the neighbors I paid for our shared fence at her request, since her neighbor on her other side wouldn't contribute to their shared fence, another board member and human piece of garbage. I would have been willing to dig a hole for the trampoline, to hide it more, or purchase a new one with elastic bands rather than springs, to make it quieter. Both of those options are cheaper than getting a lawyer. But nobody asked. Nobody came to me to have a face-to-face, heart-to-heart discussion about their concerns. A few ironies: these are 5-bedroom homes, clearly people with kids are going to move in, and they are going to be noisy in their backyard with or without play equipment. The guy who sold his home smoked like a chimney. I don't think my trampoline should have been his top concern. The people who ended up buying his home are a great family with 2 kids, who don't care about toys in other people's backyards. My neighbors have raised kids to adulthood, one of them 2 very active boys. When I pointed this out to her, the words that actually came out of her mouth were, "I know it's challenging to raise boys, but we're at different stages of our lives." As if that justified her trying to screw me. Back to the story, I filled out the form and sent it in. The Architectural Review Committee denied it a month later. I appealed the decision and met with the board in August. They sent me a letter and said it was in violation. I asked which rules I violated. They never sent me a letter, so I asked again a week ago. The property manager was adamant she had sent the letter, but I asked for proof. She forwarded an email, where she put my name in the "to" field after the fact. I had a strong suspicion it was after the fact due to the following reasons. An HOA meeting was mentioned that never took place. The responses to my questions varied in color, indicating they had been edited at different times. She responded immediately to my request for proof by indicating she would forward the email, but then took an hour, presumably editing a draft she never sent. She cited a rule early in the email, but then cited an additional rule later that superseded the first. The first cited rule could have simply been omitted. The message was not marked as forwarded message at the top, and the sent time didn't include seconds. None of these things are a smoking gun, but they are suspicious. I asked the other people in the "to" field if they received a copy of the email with my name in the address field. The only honest member of the board replied he hadn't. The rest remained silent because they didn't want to look like they and the property manager dropped the ball. Intermission. If you're curious why the board didn't like my trampoline, here is the rationale provided in the letter that was never sent. Due to the close proximity of the homes to each other and the small yards, the trampoline is unsightly to the homes surrounding it. Realtors for those homes surrounding you have stated that it is a detraction to selling homes and is lowering the home values of those around it. There have also been neighbor complaints regarding the noise level, which creates those homeowners to be unable to enjoy their homes. They are also unable to use certain portions of their homes while the trampoline is being used. My kids all weigh under 35 pounds, they go to bed at 7 p.m. and don't jump on the trampoline in the morning before 10 a.m. My neighbors bought homes 10 feet away from mine. What did they expect? Back to the story, the year-end meeting was scheduled for yesterday, and 4 board positions were up for election. I got 3 of my friends on the street to run with me. I went door to door every day for a week and spoke with the majority of homeowners about their discontent with the street. I got 1/3 of the community to sign proxy forms stating that I would vote on their behalf. I went to the meeting last night and put these fools on blast. I listed calmly all the ways the current board was failing the community and my plan to right their wrongs. The vote was a landslide, in favor of myself and my friends getting elected. One awful board member remains, but he is the minority. We fired the property manager who was uncommunicative and flat-out dishonest. The trampoline endures. The only bummer is now I have to manage a street which includes some legit crazy people. But this whole episode has convinced my wife that we will never live in an HOA again, which I count as a huge victory in addition to the trampoline remaining where it is today. The next one is titled, The Story of Tiny Dick McGee and How He Lost, Will Lose His License, His Vehicle, and His Business. This story takes us back to September. Now I'm a nice guy. A very nice guy. I tell people my phone is always on, and I usually get at least 1 or 2 calls a week for emergencies. One of my friends proceeded to call me at around midnight for a ride from the bar. Her friends left without her and she was stranded. While I'm waiting for her in the parking lot, I am introduced to Micro Dick McGee in an unpleasant way. I see this guy walk out of the bar wearing a sailor hat and go into his jacked-up truck, raised cab, big tires, suspension, and so forth. I name him Micro Dick McGee due to the fake stereotype of big truck means overcompensation and because he's a complete idiot. See, he gets into his truck and proceeds to back up into my parked vehicle on the driver's side, and then he starts to drive away. What? Did he not feel when he smoked my car? Anyways, I start to chase after him and take photos of his license plate and truck so I have his info in case he gets away. He sees the flash and pulls over 3 blocks later. I get his info in the form of a business card. Turns out he owns his own construction business. We go our own separate ways. I call him later on a few days later, and he wants me to just go to his friend's repair shop, and he'll pay for it. Hell no. I'm going through my insurance, I don't want to get ducked over for these repairs. So I fill out the forms and bring my car in, they take photos, my statement, and that's it. Now we skip forward 2 months. I still haven't had the repair done. I'm going to wait until Christmas when I can afford to be out of commission for a few days. I get a call from my insurance, turns out he's denying it ever happened now. So I have to go meet up at the insurance agency with him at the same time, with our vehicles for them to take more photos and measurements. I get a call the day of the meeting, turns out he can't make it. Nice of him to cancel an hour before the meeting. Idiot. I think he's doing this to avoid getting caught. We're scheduled for 2 weeks later, he skips this one again. Reschedule for another 2 weeks, and he misses it again. The insurance agent and I are complaining about this twat and I get some nice information. Turns out he was driving on a suspended license. I can only assume from a DUI or too many collisions and tickets. Oh. I'm going to use this against him. So I go to the bar and view the footage at the time he hit me and 15 minutes before he hit me. Remember the sailor hat? Yeah. That ducked him over. Here's a candle in the night at the bar. Too easy to find. I get proof of him backing up into me, and a video of him having a drink. Bam. Drinking and driving. Did I mention my state has a zero tolerance policy? Next, I tell the cops to show up to the meeting place, and to wait. So we go to the 4th and final meetup, where if he didn't make it, they'd rule in my favor and fine him. He shows up, they rule in my favor, the paint is still on his car. He doesn't even look at me the entire time, and drives away as quick as we're done. Bam. Pulled over as he drives out, gets a $800 fine for driving without a license. I also give them the video footage. Oh. If you didn't have a DUI before, you do now. And now. I drove past his business a few days later. Still driving his truck, and without a license. So I call the cops again and laugh on my merry way, and I'm going to call the cops every time I see his vehicle there. That's a duck of a fine he's going to get. Eventually his vehicle will be seized, and because he can't drive, he's not going to be able to go to his clients. He owns a construction company, he's the only employee, so transportation is entirely dependent on him. Can't drive to clients. Can't make money. Can't pay the multiple fines I'm giving you, your business is going to go under. Don't drink and drive, don't deny an accident you're clearly at fault for. The next one is titled, Don't Be Bush League in When You're Playing Baseball. So back when I was 14 I played ball in an all-star summer league. I play catcher, so I called all the pitches by the normal routine of putting fingers down to distinguish which pitch I wanted thrown. Anyways, we're playing a game against a good team and it's pretty close. However, there was this one big mongoloid on the other team who would always look back at my signs while he was in the batter's box to steal what pitch was coming. Every time he did it I told him to stop being a pussy and just play the game. He did not adhere. So after he got 2 base hits I was pretty fed up, so I told my teammates. My one teammate Kevin came up with the idea to flip him off the next time he looked. I thought this was a great idea. In comes the troll into the batter's box, and without a doubt he starts to steal my signs again. After the first pitch, I called time and met with the pitcher on the mound and told him that I was going to flip this kid off and to then throw at his head. He was down with the get down. So I assume my position and see the kid peering into my crotch again for the signs. I flip him the old bird and start laughing. The kid then exits the box and starts throwing a hissy fit about how I flipped him off. The umpire is confused and thinks the kid says I was flicking him with my hand, so he tells me to cut that out. I keep laughing, but the kid is still aggravated. The UMP then tells the kid to get into the box and play ball. He eventually does. The next pitch comes right at his head and he dodges out of the way. At this point my entire team knows what's going on, especially our large first baseman Will. The kid is frazzled but continues to try and steal signs and asterisk every time he looks I give him the middle finger. Asterisk the balls and strikes count gets to 2-2, and so I call for a curveball, no middle finger, and whisper to the kid that a curveball is coming and that I bet he couldn't hit it. Well, the curveball comes, hits the dirt, and he swings and misses. We were playing regulation, and since I didn't catch the ball cleanly, the kid could try to advance to first. He does exactly that, but remember, this kid is not the fastest player. I calmly throw the ball to first base and he is out by a mile. Our first baseman Will catches the ball and stands directly on the bag, pretty much blocking the kid's way. The kid, flustered, then tries to bulldoze Will. Will is huge and stuffs him with ease, and the kid gets pummeled to the ground. The umpire comes over and ejects the kid out of the game. The kid starts crying and asterisk him still laughing. Asterisk we won the game and I was a home run away from the cycle. The next one is titled, Got My Supervisor Fired After She Retaliated Against Me and Fired Me. I started working for an insurance company in January of this year. I even moved to the opposite side of the country to do so. While I was in office, everything was great. I was hitting my metrics and exceeding goals monthly. Then COVID hit, and we were all sent home to work remotely. That's when things went downhill. In June, my aunt died from COVID, so I took time off for the virtual memorial. In July, my wife lost her best friend suddenly and was in the thralls of grief, so I used PTO during this time to cover. The first Sunday of July, I had done a shift trade with a fellow associate, but I logged in anyway just to make sure it was accepted. I checked my schedule and the coding for the day was confusing, so I sent my supervisor a screenshot and asked for clarification. It was determined by my sup that I was off that day. This is important for later. Throughout the month, I noticed that my supervisor was going into my time card and changing my hours work from over 2 months ago, which caused me to, allegedly, use PTO that I didn't have, even though the system and my paycheck stated otherwise. Because of her hijacking my time cards regularly, I received 8 attendance occurrences in one meeting. We are allowed 8. Now remember that day in July where my sup determined I was off? Well, 1st of August hit and she comes back and tells me that I in fact was not off that day, and now that I'm looking at the screenshot, you needed to work. She and I went back and forth on what the point of sending information if she wasn't even going to look at it. I even reached out to her supervisor and HR, but ultimately I was told that this would be the 9th occurrence. After my sup got wind that I went above her head, she got upset. She wouldn't recognize my accomplishments but would do so for the rest of the team. She would send me emails that were confusing and started micromanaging everything I did. Any small mistake would result in immediate disciplinary action, even something so small as going over by 1 minute on my break. I'm on the spectrum, and it was taking a toll on my mental health. I would come into work feeling worthless, no good, and in utter terror of losing my job or getting in trouble for something, because up until this point I had gotten in trouble every single day for the last 2 weeks. Finally, I came into work on August 3rd only to receive an email stating that my sup had once again manipulated my time card for the day of June 30th. I didn't even think it was legal for a supervisor to go back and change a time card from over a month ago. As a result of this change, I got an email that HR had consequently backdated all PTO taken between 6/30ths and now due to the change, which was requested directly by my sup. At this point, I get sent into a meeting with my sup and her sup. During the meeting, I remained as calm and respectful as possible, all the while trying not to break down in tears. I called my supervisor out for time card manipulation, retaliatory behavior, and lack of communication. I even called her out for telling me multiple times to change my time card within a pay period. This woman lied to her boss's face, and what's worse, she was believed. My character and ethics came into question, to which I was told an investigation would be launched. Long story short, by the end of the meeting and because of her manipulation of my time card, I was at 13 occurrences and was ultimately let go. The revenge came in just a few hours before the meeting, because what my supervisor didn't know is that I had saved every single email between me and my sup and screenshot every Skype conversation. The CEO of the company actually responds to emails and has responded to mine every time, so I explained the retaliatory behavior in an email to the CEO, along with all the emails and screenshots between me and my sup. I figured it was a long shot, but I wanted to try. Since I was fired that afternoon, I was unable to access my emails, so I didn't know if she responded. I was fired on Thursday, had an interview with another company on Monday and Tuesday, and yesterday I was offered the position, 1 week to the day that I got fired. This position is a significant salary increase, as well as a normal MF schedule. It's incredible how someone that has character flaws manages to get a better job in a week. Earlier today, I got a FB message from a former co-worker of mine. Apparently, my supervisor is no longer there, not quite sure if it's admin leave or termination, but apparently an investigation is being launched to see if she did this to anyone else. And the CEO sent out a mass email to the entire company with updated policies for reporting retaliation and that supervisors are only allowed to update time cards within the last 2 weeks. I was stunned. Haha. That idiot fired me without cause, but I came with receipts and simply returned the favor. The next one is titled, For the Sake of the Customer. I'm an IT consultant, and have a rep of being really competent with Microsoft Exchange Server. A couple of years ago I bid on but did not get a project to upgrade an Exchange 2003 environment to Exchange 2010. Multiple servers, multiple sites and right up my alley. The firm that won the bid did so by pricing it extremely low, about 40% below my price, which was on the low end to begin with. Totally unrealistic pricing, but they thought they could pull it off with their people. Their people were good generalists but did not have a handle on Exchange 2010. I told the customer, who I'd done work for before and who I'd had a good relationship with, that it was not going to end well for them. They took it as sour grapes on my part. Fair enough. I had plenty of other things to do anyway, so I just moved on. 2 weeks after they started the implementation phase of the job the other consulting firm augured in. The entire email system stopped working. No mail coming in or out, no mail flowing between any of the Exchange servers, everything just dead in the water. I find this out when I get a call late one evening at my home from the other consulting company begging me to pull them out of the fire. I told them no thanks. An hour later the owner of the other firm is at my front door trying to convince me to help them, for the sake of the customer. This is well after dark and the conversation does not go well. He ends up screaming at me and I slam the door, then call the cops because I'm tired and afraid that I'll do something stupid if I continue to interact with the guy. Cops come, he loses it, they arrest him for disorderly conduct and I have his freaking car blocking mine in my driveway. I have it towed off, I had to pay for the privilege too. He spends the next 24 hours in jail, about average for getting through the Dallas County Jail, I'm told. The customer called me the following day and I again declined to fix the mess. By this time I'd decided I didn't want any of that on me, period. The customer ends up getting Microsoft services in to fix everything, cost them about 5 times what I was going to charge, by the way. The customer sues the other consulting firm, which promptly files for bankruptcy, closes its doors rather than deal with the lawsuit. The next one is titled, On the Side of Caution. I was working maintenance at an ice rink. The rule for anyone who knows how an ice rink works is if the Zamboni doors open, you get off the ice. Some idiot decided to ignore the fact that they were open and that I was standing in the doorway, and decided to rip off one last slap shot. The puck bounced off the glass and hit me in the head. I was okay, but reported it to my boss, because we have to fill out an incident report for things like that. The boss asked, "Are you okay?" I said I feel okay, then he responded with, "Well, we don't really have to report it then, do we?" I reminded him of the protocol, but it was clear he didn't want to do it. Since he wouldn't do it, I sent a descriptive email of the incident up to the administration, because I felt there should be some sort of documentation, paper trail in case God forbid I ended up having a brain hemorrhage or something a few days later. The boss was fired by my next shift. The last one is titled, I'm Getting Orange Juice. I wish I could say this is my story, but it's not. This one is courtesy one of my closest friends. For reference I'll be referring to him as BP. Slightly not safe for work, I suppose. I'd rather tag it and it not be, than not tag it and have someone's boss walk up and read it. Also, names and tiny details are changed or omitted, but the overall story is legit. A few years ago, BP was dating this girl. He really dug her and did everything he could to please her. He was a reasonably funny dude, not bad looking. And he sung for a band, so he had his choice of a few ladies, but chose this one because he was really fond of her. Bent over backwards for her, so to speak. After the relationship goes on for a while, he finds out she's been cheating on him. And it didn't just start, she's been cheating on him since they were courting. Apparently, his love for her wasn't mutual, and she just refused to give up other guys, even after their own relationship seemed to get serious. BP was furious, but he wasn't the type to shit in her cereal, beat up the other guys, etc. But he wanted to get back at her somehow, some way. A few days later, we're all out drinking, hanging out, hitting the bar circuit, having a good time when who else but his ex's mum actually shows up. Ex's mum gets liquored up with us when BP actually saw his opportunity for revenge. So he sweet talks the mother to the point where she ends up bringing him back home with her, and then, you guessed it. He had sex with his ex's mother. But the story gets better. Post-coitus, he decides to get up and go to the kitchen to get a drink. Not putting anything on but a t-shirt, he walks into the kitchen and opens the fridge. At this point, his ex, who was out herself, comes in and runs into him, naked from the torso down, in her fridge. She screams at him, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Nonchalantly, he replies, "Getting some orange juice. Thanks for listening."